Hey everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. And so the T-52 is back, and as you'll know if you've been following the channel, it was gifted for free to everybody who has been playing the game for 4 years, or at least has registered their account for 4 years. And if you've been playing in the last week, you'll know that the matchmaker's been pretty wild with a whole bunch of these tanks filling it. But just because it's popular doesn't really mean it's any good. And today I'm going to be putting it through its tests and giving you a full review on the Tier 6 version of the T-52. So the T-52 was a legendary Tier 5 Soviet standard light tank that was removed from the game in Update 8.7 and replaced by the god-awful MT-25. The reason why the vehicle was removed is because it was frankly so fast at 72 kilometers an hour, and that doesn't really sound like that much these days, but this was before a whole series of physics changes came to the game that it would actually track itself, and it had such an outrageous power to weight ratio that it would be able to maintain its speed even while turning. This effectively made the T-52 the first epic scout tank in World of Tanks, and it's something that we're probably going to see reoccurring with the release of the wheeled French light tanks, which are probably going to be next year now. Now, one of the best things about the T-52 back in the day was that it had the same 57mm armament that you would use on a T-28 or a T-34, and as we can clearly see, yeah, it's got the same 57mm back, the same alpha as the gun that's on the T-34, and it's got slightly more penetration now, but if you do dab the 2 key, 165 compared to the 189 that you would get on a Tier 5 medium. So not quite so much pay to win on the new T-52. But one thing that sucks about this tank is its DPM is not exactly incredible, but then again, it's way better than the MT-25. However, it should be mentioned you don't have to use the 76mm gun on the MT-25, you can use the same 57mm, and apart from having a little bit less penetration, it's pretty much identical to the T-52, or alternatively you can use the 45mm gun on the MT-25, but you have horrible alpha damage of 70 and 90mm of penetration. Yeah, that's really not going to cut it. However, we can't really have a T-52 review without comparing it to the Type 64, which I still don't understand why it's available in the tech tree. It's that darn good at Tier 6, and clearly we can see why. Its DPM is nearly 400 more, its penetration is better on its standard rounds, and it's also going to be better on its premium rounds as well. The alpha damage is greater, which means that you don't have to fire so often, and apart from the amount of ammunition it can carry and also the shell velocity of the premium rounds on the Type 64, it's just flat out better with regard to firepower than the new T-52. Alright, so moving on to gun handling. This is one of the best things about the new T-52. Great aim time at 1.8 seconds, pretty good accuracy at 0.38, and great dispersion values identical to the Type 64. And so that means this thing can keep firing accurately on the move, irrelevant of not being able to use vertical stabilizers. That is one thing that I should highlight about the tank, however, is that the Type 64 can use vertical stabilizers, and so if you do choose to equip that on it, then its gun handling is going to go better than the T-52, and apart from when you're stationary, it's just going to be flat out better aim time as well, effectively. One thing that's neither good nor bad about the T-52 is the gun depression. 7 degrees, which is way better than the MT-25, but doesn't stack up to the 10 degrees that you'd have on the Type 64. Alright, so now the mobility of the T-52. This was the lifeblood of the tank back in patch 8.6 and earlier when it was at Tier 5. Unfortunately, it's had its top speed reduced to 65, however it's still got a great reverse speed at 23, and it's got a fantastic power to weight ratio of just under 34.5. This still makes the tank ludicrously quick, and it can run rings round even a light tank like the Type 64. But for some reason, Wargaming haven't given the vehicle the best tank traverse, and so the Type 64 is actually turning faster on hard and medium terrain, where the T-52 pulls ahead on soft. Alright, next up, armor, something that the T-52 was pretty darn good for back in the day, and it's not bad news for this tank now. 37mm over pretty much most of the front of the tank, 37mm on the side, and also a decent turret at 52. That means you will be pulling off miracle bounces with this tank, and it's only 120mm caliber guns that are going to be hitting the side of your tank and overmatching it, likely taking off the tracks as well. Apart from that, this vehicle has a standard amount of hit points for a Tier 6 light tank at 580 and packs 370 meters view range, which, it's 20 meters less than the Type 64, but at least it's not as tragic as the MT-25. If you're looking to use the T-52 as a crew trainer, you'll be happy to know that your T-100 LT crew will fit very nicely in this vehicle. In addition to the commander, the gunner, and the driver that you'll probably take from your T-100 LT, you're also going to need a loader, which I like to take from my T-54 lightweight, but you may already have one on the MT-25, the T-50, the LTTP, or even alternatively the Valentine 2. So the T-52 comes in two flavors. This is the new look for the T-52, which considering the game never used to have HD textures, kind of looks a little out of place. And so while this vehicle is being given away for free to everybody who registered their account 4 years ago, if you want to be able to get the unique style that I'm about to show you, your account is going to have to be 6 years old. And this style is called Immortal Classics, and as we can see, yeah, it completely removes all of the HD textures, makes the tank look very, very different, and this is the way that I personally like to play my T-52. Anyway, I think that's quite enough talking about this tank. Let's go for a complete nostalgic dose of gameplay. So here we go, rolling out on Province, and unfortunately it's not the old version of Province. Back in the day, this map used to stretch all the way up to tier 10. Now it is reduced to tier 7, so all of those tier 7 tanks got to be happy for seeing this map because it's a top tier guarantee if you're in a tier 7 tank and you see Province. Now, Province back in the day used to be a lot smaller, and so if I was in a T-52, I would have probably just rushed into the bushes here, spotted everybody who left the spawn here, spotted everybody who was making their way along here. This was one of the best light tank maps in the game. It was absolutely horrible at tier 10, because obviously of that big saturation problem when it comes to view range, that frankly some tanks can just get too much of it, and then on small maps you're going to be able to spot everybody unless they can try and make it around a corner. Alright, so one of the main things that you're going to have to worry about if you do pick up the T-52, well, I mean, when I say if you do pick it up, it's not like this is a purchase. You're either giving it for free or you're not because you didn't register your account long enough ago. Whether you're going to bother to play the tank is probably the better way of putting it. I'm so used to trying to review these premium vehicles. Alright, so you have to get used to the rate of fire on the gun. Let's see if I'm going to hit this gun handling. Unfortunately, I just bump into, I think, the IKV there or something, but I'm going to come around the corner, finish off the French light tank, and make my way towards the other T-52. I bounce off his front. He doesn't bounce off mine. Luckily, he misses us, so we should be able to finish him off here, but he's actually reloads very quickly. And it's all about taming the rate of fire on this gun. Once you've got a gun rammer and you've got a good crew in this vehicle, you're probably starting to pack the rate of fire up into the 23, 24 rounds a minute mark, which is absolutely outrageous. Alright, so let's see, let's take a look at when I'm firing premium rounds and when I'm firing standard rounds here. As I am playing on my premium account, I can afford the luxury of taking a few premium rounds in this tank, and they definitely do help out when you get yourself into those bad matchups against tier 8 tanks. You're not really going to do too much with 118mm of pen, are you? The 165 definitely does a lot more, and it's even very useful for engaging these tier 7 heavies here like the Tiger P, or even alternatively shooting at that German heavy tank. It might help out a little bit if he's going to be angling. Alright, so the Tiger P doing under a lot of pressure here from us. These bushes are just absolutely fantastic for being able to spot out. But luckily, we managed to have a challenger just sit there and take a few rounds. And you can see that while this tank's DPM is not great, if you do manage to whack in a few shells like that, 250 damage is nothing to slouch at. You're going to be able to eventually take your opponents down. It just feels a bit sad that I know that if I was in a Type 64, my gun handling would be better. My aim time would be slightly worse, but remember, I don't have to fire as often because my alpha damage is a lot higher in the Type 64. And my raw DPM is higher as well, by pretty much like 25%. So that is a little ugly. Now I'm just spamming premium rounds here at the lower plate of the Tiger P. We do manage to go through it a couple of times, but that's starting to get a little bit expensive even for me on my premium account. Alright, so we try and come around the corner there and zap the challenger, but he pulls back. So right now, what am I thinking? I'm thinking that this position's getting a little boring. Well, actually, no, maybe I'm thinking that I can try and get some shots in from over here, and I'm hoping that this Cromwell Berlin and the AMX 1357 aren't going to have to deal with that. Alright, so we're just going to spot out, try and extend some view range across. That's one thing that you can do very well in the T-52 is, its camo isn't the best. I think fully pimped out on my tank it's about 33%, so it's definitely not like you're playing an ELC, even 90, or you're playing your T100 LT at tier 10, where I can get up to like 43% camo on that tank. Aim time not too bad, gun handling not too shabby, even without vertical stabilizers. I'm trying to find a position here where we can engage the Tiger P. If you're wondering why the reticle is shaking a little bit there, I think it's because Wargaming put out a micro patch to put their advent calendar in the game, and it seems to have screwed up this replay a little bit, but hopefully there won't be too many visual bugs. Alright, so I can't really come around this corner. There's an IKV-65 that we put a couple of rounds into. Luckily, there's no artillery that we have to worry about, but there's a couple of tank destroyers on the enemy team that haven't been spotted. Well, one exactly. the bathtub, the S-35C. I'm terrified of getting hit there. If he's firing a premium round, he's going to hit me for 330 damage. If he's firing a regular round, 300. It's one of the most horrible pay-to-win guns in the game. Still don't know why Wargaming haven't fixed it on that tank and also on the AMX M445. But then again, you know what? That Tier 7 French heavy tank, I think that vehicle really needs all of the help it can get. Every single advantage. I really don't like using the 90mm on that tank. It's an absolute horrible Tier 7 heavy unless you get to play a pure support role. Alright, so now I want to use some of the mobility of the T-52. Gauge how nippy this thing is. Downslope, I mean, the 65 kilometers an hour is neither good nor bad, but just see how good the traverse speed is of the tank. You can really whip it around, and with a good power to weight, well, I can't say a good power to weight ratio, with an excellent power to weight ratio of 35, just under 35. It's absolutely ludicrous. And a couple of rounds there into the back of the 40 TP, we pick up our third kill of the game on a higher tiered medium tank, not too shabby. And we get spotted. I think that was a proxy spot from the Tiger P as we went underneath him, but my plan is to get up behind. Maybe I was thinking maybe I can shoot through here, but doesn't look like that's possible. This map's still fairly new to me. You don't really get on it that much when you're derping around at high tiers quite often. I have got onto this map a couple of times as I've made my way up on my free-to-play account, and it looks like we've outpositioned the Skoda T25 here. Is he AFK? Well, it doesn't really matter now, because we set him on fire, and we put in the third and final shell into the back of the... Is that the Tier 6 or is that the Tier 5? That is the Tier 6 Czechoslovakian medium tank. Did I call it Italian? I always mess those two up, sorry. I'm glad he was actually AFK, or he'd just given up, or maybe he was just taking a little break, maybe he had alt-tabbed or something, because that tank has that 3-round autoloader. Yeah, this tank, it doesn't take hits very well. It's got enough armor to occasionally pull off a miracle ricochet, but 580 hit points is not going to last you, just like in all of your other Tier 6 light tanks. They're very fragile. Even Tier 6 medium tanks don't take a good amount of fire under... Well, they can't withstand a good amount of fire. Alright, so I flanked all the way back to come and get up on the Tiger P here. We put one round into his side, and now we're going to be aiming at the top of his tank, aiming for that weak point. We fire one into his cupola. We're going to fire another premium round, finish off the Tiger P, picking up my 5th kill of the game. And yeah, it's starting to go pretty well, right? That's what the T-52 is all about. It just seems to be able to drive like a madman into position, outflank its opponents. And when it gets there, the 57mm on this tank is not half bad for a Tier 6 reward vehicle. Yeah. Usually, as kind of like Brian, aka Meathead Militia, said, the free tanks that Wargaming give you are usually garage slots. Usually, you get them on your free-to-play account, or maybe you just don't have a lot of garage slots. You think, is it really worth keeping that? Nah, I'm gonna sell it. Now, personally, for me as a collector, that sounds terrible. I would never sell a reward tank that was gifted to me on my main account, because the idea of not spending the 150 gold to buy a garage slot when it's on sale, and maybe sell a premium tank, a little reward vehicle that I might never be able to get again unless I want to pay a silly amount to be able to get my hands on it in some kind of collector's deal, is ludicrous. But on a free-to-play account, or even somebody who just doesn't really want to play the crappy tanks, and I'm keeping things like the Tolda, what's it? I think it's the Toldi inside my garage, and that thing is just absolutely useless. Why I would ever want to play that little German light tank is beyond me. I just, no, I don't want to play it. I don't ever want to play it, but I just keep it because I'm horrendously addicted to collecting tanks in this game. Anyway, let me get to my point. Usually they're garbage, but this one, it's not garbage. Sure, they haven't given this to everyone, but I've seen a lot of these in the matchmaker. And whether that's people coming back and reinstalling World of Tanks just to be able to play it again is another question. Or whether there's just a lot of veterans out there who do have these and maybe they're just playing them around a lot because they're quite fun. But you know what? Hats off to you, Wargaming. This was a really nice sentiment and also just a really nice reward for everybody. Everybody who's just played for a year managed to get like a million credits or whatever, and if you've been playing, if you're a true veteran, then not only are you getting this, but you're also getting millions of credits in reply. Now I must give a big shout out to the IS on my team. The IS is, well, the IS was popping out where they were, but also I'd like to give a shout out to the 1375. Sorry, the 1357. Who's saying, are you going around, working together? And I flanked, and we're getting them absolutely sandwiched now. So big shout out to you. How am I saying that? Scabol? It was a nice playing with you, buddy. The IKV tries to come over the hill there to be able to finish us off. But luckily, we pull back using the agility of the tank. We dodge him. The IS picks up his top gun, And then we also managed to kill the BDR at the end of the game, which allows us to pick up a top gun too. And so this was a snazzy round in the T-52. We pick up a high caliber and a top gun for our 6 kills, 1,322 base experience points, and we barely made credits. Yeah, that's right. Sorry to disappoint any of you, but as I said in my video earlier this week, this is a reward tank. It's not a premium tank. It's going to make you really good crew training for your Soviet light tanks, just like a premium tank would. It's just not going to make any of those credits. And considering how poor the penetration is on this vehicle, unless you're running a premium account or you're just never willing to fire any premium rounds at all, and you kind of really need to fire them, especially in a bad matchup, just to be competitive to account for that poor penetration, you're definitely not going to be making any credits, and you're probably going to be losing them to be able to play this tank effectively. So the T-52 returns. Is it the tiny terror of the battlefield that it used to be? No, not really. I think that back in the day, everybody had a little less view range. Everybody was a little bit slower, and this tank was a lot faster. It had a better top speed. It felt like its agility was a little bit more. And also, back in the day, there were things, there were just fundamental game mechanics that didn't exist that are in the game now. For example, the little things, how quickly, or shall I say how frequently, the position of your tank is updated to the enemy tanker. I think back in the day it was done every half a second. Probably every half a second the server kind of like did a spot. So what do I mean? I mean that every half a second the server judged whether the different tanks could be able to spot each other. And so what happened is light tanks used to be able to come round a corner, and if you imagine how fast this tank would come round a corner, it would be able to get halfway round the corner before the server pinged at where the spot would happen. And so if a very fast light tank is trying to get across a narrow street on Himmelsdorf, quite often it would already be able to get across the street before it rendered on your screen and you had the reactions to be able to put a shot into it. Evidently, what we have now is a massive improvement, but it's not a massive improvement for the T-52. The fact that the game client is so much more efficient, and also that we have full physics in the game now, which allows this tank to roll over if you try and turn too aggressively round a corner, especially on a downslope, means that a lot of the things that the T-52 used to be able to take advantage of, and I'm not saying for the right reasons, it just can't do now. Now, of course, Wargaming weren't going to give away T-52s to all of the veteran tankers and make it a complete powerhouse and overpowered, but you know what? I think they've done a great job of still making it fun, while also making it balanced. While I think it's significantly better than the MT-25, although that's really not saying a lot, it still pales in comparison to a Type 64. And so while I still feel that the Type 64 is the filthy seal clubber's wet dream of a tier 6 light tank, I think the T-52 fits really well into the game, and it's probably going to be one of my go-to tanks for when I fancy training up my T-100 LT crew. But then again, I could just be playing an LT-432 and also making huge credits at the same time. So the T-52, the tank of the people, while it's not that crazy Ivan of a tank that used to seem to just duck and weave through the enemy lines, evading hundreds of shots, light up all of the enemy artillery and their tank destroyers and get them all obliterated, and then seeming to pull back and do the same thing again on the way back towards his allies, it's by no means a terrible tank, and I think it's great that Wargaming are recognizing their veteran players by giving them fun vehicles that have been retired for a very long time for free in a balanced format. And so, awesome stuff, Wargaming. More of the same, please. Now, where's my Aufklärungspanzer Panther? And so that's it for today, ladies and gents. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. But if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know what you think about the T-52. Have you been taking yours onto the battlefield? Have you been a KV-2 driver who has been eating them all this week as some very delicious snack? Or are you a truly old school veteran of World of Tanks who used to play the T-52 to death back in the day? And the new one just simply can't compare. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.